Hamza, let me come to you on this revenue mobilization exercise by the ECG. It looks like one utility taking on the other. But the warning they have issued actually is that if they follow through with the payment plan, then they will go and disconnect the pumping stations of Ghana Water. And that will mean wahala for you and I.
Good morning to you and, of course, my colleagues in the studio, and most importantly to our cherished viewers out there. I can understand the relationship between Honorable and what's his name? Elvis. Maybe we need to investigate it further. See where
but if you understand probably there's no need for investigation.
I'm saying that for the sake of our general public, maybe we may be let into some of the political happenings between the two of them way back, so that we can better situate our political positions on this table. If I'm alone on this table, then I'll know how to position myself. Anyway, having said that, you see, this is not surprising to me.
No.
In all honesty, I think that this is long overdue. We have reached a stage in our national governance architecture where we must give institutions the backing. And if I say the backing here, I'm making reference to the political backing to actually act independently when it comes to fulfilling its mandate and objectives as far as the country is concerned. And for me, when I heard the news yesterday, that was the kind of impression I got. I told myself that perhaps, maybe like the president indicated when he met the CEOs of state-owned enterprises. You remember, one of his cardinal promises, even before the general elections, had to do with a promise to ensure that we begin to run our state-owned enterprises in such a way that they are productive and they actually live true to its mandate and be able to turn around in terms of his ability to make profits. Upon assumption of office, he took it a bit further. That is why he is now empowering SIGA to ensure performance contracts among these state-owned enterprises. Inevitably, if the presidency or the government is now committed to ensuring that CEOs sign performance contracts with SIGA, what it simply means is that even the presidency or political actors would be careful in terms of how they interfere in the running of these institutions, because the CEOs know that their respective jobs are at stake. And so they would not allow themselves to be influenced by influence peddlers holding political positions or who are closer to the corridors of power. When in actual sense, if they allow such things to happen, their own appointments would be at risk. So for me, I feel that that is the way for us to go. And when I heard that Ghana Water Company Limited in particular was owing, I was like, what the hell is happening in this
Close
country?
to 1 billion cedis.
Is it not this same Ghana Water Company Limited, we were told by the Attorney General, reached an agreement with the former director of the NSB, alleged that in excess of about 1.5 million Ghana cedis was being paid to one of the clone companies of the said gentleman monthly for internet services. So if the Ghana Water Company Limited, under the SWR regime, could afford 1.5 million Ghana cedis to service a so-called internet service job or contract in terms of fulfillment of the payment of the money, that is 1.5 million, I'm told, to NSB. Why is it struggling? That same organization, why must it struggle to pay monthly
Electricity
ECG,
bills.
electricity bills? Why? So you see that it has to do with priorities. So clearly, it has to do with the level of management that we subject them to. Sometimes I think that we unnecessarily overburden central government in terms of even how we decide to distribute our criticisms. Because I have always argued that we have reached a stage in this country where chief executives must themselves be held accountable for their actions. Let us see how they are running their respective organizations. And so we can judge them accordingly. But this lazy approach of lumping everything on the doorstep of government creates that protective layer for many of them to continue to be inefficient. Especially even when they are appointed to bring some kind of meaningful transformation to these sectors. So I would want to see how SIGA, going ahead, would be able to evaluate the performance of these current CEOs in line with the vision of His Excellency President John Dramani Mahama, that commitment to ensuring that they work according to their mandate without unnecessary or undue interference. This is very important. And you see, it is not just Ghana Water Company Limited alone. I'm told even Ghana Broadcasting Corporation also had to be disconnected, I think yesterday or so.
As well as some private
Then again, we're all in this country. Is it the African Cup of Nations? No. There was this West African Games that was organized just before the general elections. And we're told of the unimaginable, questionable expenditures that came at the back of that transaction. And one is left wondering. So even within that space, that in excess of about $3 million was released under the guise of airing that so-called West African Games. Excuse my language, not so-called, because indeed it was West African Games. So there was no way the management could have squeezed out some little amount of money geared towards defraying the indebtedness of Ghana Broadcasting Corporation to ECG. So then again, it has to do with priorities. Because we do not take debts we owe to other state institutions seriously as state institutions. Because we feel that the government would intervene anytime ECG is going to disconnect. Or even Ghana Water Company Limited is going to disconnect. Because it's a service provided from one government institution to another government institution. So the incentive by managers of these state institutions to even fulfill their debt obligations to ECG is not there. And these are some of the questions we should be asking. When it comes to the inefficiencies of ECG, that is another leg altogether. But you cannot talk about inefficiencies of ECG without linking it to how other state institutions are emboldened, because ECG is largely owned by government. So even those state institutions are themselves emboldened in terms of their unwillingness to service their debts. How do you expect ECG to be effective and perform? So the inefficiency is not just about the performance of employees of ECG. You realize that in a way it can also be argued to be imported from other state institutions into the operations of ECG. And these are some of the questions we should be looking at. And like I indicated, I am glad that His Excellency President Mahama has shown that indeed there will be that monitoring when it comes to the performance of these state institutions. And so it's consoling. But beyond that promise, beyond the commitment of the president, it must take the CEOs to be able to operationalize and give meaning to that vision. And knowing His Excellency
the onus lies with management of these institutions.
But knowing His Excellency President Mahama, if they fail to take that caution seriously, he's a man, I am convinced, who would be driven to act in the interest of the nation. But interestingly, there's one point we are even missing in the news. And it is because of our over-concentration on the activities of state-owned enterprises in relation to this disconnection exercise. There are many other private entities.
That's what I mentioned. Yesterday, some of these private institutions
and
were
interestingly,
disconnected
many of them are hotels and restaurants. And you simply cannot bring your head around the huge sums of monies they owe ECG, especially knowing that almost every evening these restaurants or hotels are mostly full to capacity.
That's what I was asking, that why do we always wait for the bills to pile up to this extent?
If we can, yes, it doesn't make sense, Nana. If we can understand.
Perhaps they have payment plans, but these institutions fail to honor their obligations. And I'm saying that once you notice this failure, immediately you should act. You don't wait for the figure
I agree with you. And so that also raises, and by see, again, that raises the issue of efficiency. in another angle, when it comes to the performance now of ECG as an institution, they should be able to intervene. But it will interest you to know that many of these restaurants, you go behind the ownership structure and you have political functionaries or
politically exposed persons
being shareholders
of
these entities. And so even when the time comes for them to honor their ECG debt obligations, they can go behind the scenes and make the necessary calls to still get these organizations to be hooked onto the national grid. So we must be interested. And we must have a detailed station team, especially at the ECG, mandated to go into some of these organizations to be able to monitor compliance when it comes to debt servicing. And the public must know them. For instance, if you are appointing a director in charge of recoveries of private enterprises, especially in the hotel industry, or those running, what do you call it? Hospitals, private hospitals. That sector. Let us know the person, the director in charge. Let us measure his performance at the end of the month or 2 or 3 months. How he's been able to recover. So that many of these political machinations where one can call ECG to buy some time and they end up not paying, but Imperial Perkins and the likes. If you look at the list, Nana, just a minute. It is just unbelievable. It is mind-blowing. Because you have
it's actually a long list.
It's a long list. You have the likes of Daisy Hospital Limited, Star Life Company Limited, Boachi and Mattress Ghana. You have, my goodness, even MPA head office, unbelievable. A state institution.
Bui Power.
Then you have Bui Power.
Ghana National Gas.
Ghana National Gas Company.
Lands Commission.
You see, and you have Tang Palace. What the hell is happening in this country? So you realize that it has to do with a commitment. It is not there. But then again, why would these private institutions be encouraged to pay? When they monitor the media on daily basis and also wake up to the unacceptable practices politicians use ECG for. You remember in 2023 alone, ECG exceeded its budget by about 7.3 billion. Another reckless manifestation of leadership. So even that motivation to pay would not be there, because even those who are supposed to administer it are themselves being reckless at the top. You had a situation where the system allowed or closed attention, or if you like, decided to move attention away from the activities of ECG, where they even imported materials that they were not that were not needed.
There are meters in the system that are not even functioning.
So clearly, if I am a private businessman and I am monitoring things like that, even the motivation to be able to pay my dues, my debts would not be there. So finally, I think that we must, those of you in the media especially, Nana, I am interested in the president's promise to ensure that our state-owned enterprises begin to yield positive results. And the responsibility entrusted on SIGA especially to ensure that they sign performance contracts. I think that the time has come for those of you in the media to lead the charge like you did in the Galamsey fight. Let us be partners, important partners in that exercise, because that is the only way we can begin to see real progress when it comes to the leadership of this country.
Very well. Thank you, Hamza.